My phone lit up with the number I hadn't seen in months. Dad. My heart jumped into my throat as I stared at his name. I'm Rosanna, 35, and the last time I spoke with my family, my father told me I was no longer his daughter. Now, after complete silence here, he was calling. Maybe he wanted to apologize. I answered with shaky hands. Rosanna, we need money, he said flatly. You owe us. I hung up my finger, trembling against the screen, remembering how easily he had once erased me from his life. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to hear stories that might make you feel less alone in your own family struggles. I grew up in Brookfield, Wisconsin, where appearances mattered more than anything else. My father, George, was an accountant who measured success in dollars and conformity. He had built a respectable middle-class life with our 2-story colonial home, manicured lawn, and a family that looked perfect in Christmas card photos. Behind closed doors, though, life operated on a complicated system of approval that I never quite mastered. Mum Diana was beautiful but fragile. She'd married young and shaped herself around my father's expectations. She was his echo, not his equal. When Dad made pronouncements about our futures or criticized our choices, Mum would nod along, occasionally shooting us sympathetic glances when his back was turned. My brothers James and Michael, 3 and 5 years older than me, figured out the system early. James became the athlete Dad never was, bringing home trophies that Dad displayed prominently in the living room. Michael was the mathematical prodigy who could discuss compound interest with Dad by age 12. They learned to speak Dad's language of achievement and practicality. Then there was me. From early childhood, I gravitated toward colors and shapes rather than numbers. While my brothers built model airplanes according to instructions, I was dismantling them to create sculptures. My father would look at my creations with a mixture of confusion and disappointment. What exactly is this supposed to be, he asked, once holding up my watercolor painting of what I imagined our family looked like on the inside. It's us, but how we feel, not how we look, I explained, pointing to the swirls of color. I was 8. He set it down and walked away, muttering something about useless talents. That evening, I found the painting in the trash. The pattern continued throughout my childhood. Dad would cheer loudly at James's football games and beam with pride when Michael won the state math competition. But when I won first place in the school art show, Dad glanced at my mixed media portrait and said, "That's nice. Is there prize money?" Mum would find me later sitting alone in my room and whisper, "Your father just doesn't understand art, sweetie, but I think you're amazing." Yet she never said this when Dad was around, never challenged his dismissals or defended my passion. By middle school, I had become adept at maintaining 2 lives. At school, I was vibrant, creative Rosanna, who painted murals and designed theatrical sets. At home, I was quiet, careful not to bring attention to my artsy tendencies. I learned to talk about practical things around Dad, to mention the A in math alongside my art achievements. I kept trying to win his approval through conventional successes. I maintained a 4.0 GPA. I joined student council. I even took advanced placement economics to show I wasn't just a dreamer. Dad acknowledged these achievements with brief nods, but never with the bear hugs James received after scoring touchdowns or the proud dinner announcements when Michael aced another calculus exam. My high school graduation should have been a turning point. I was valedictorian, despite spending every free moment in the art studio. I had earned a prestigious scholarship to Pratt Institute in New York, one of the best art schools in the country. As I stood at the podium delivering my speech about finding your authentic path, I spotted my father in the audience checking his watch. That evening, as relatives gathered at our house to celebrate, Dad pulled me aside. "Art school," he said, shaking his head. "You realize you're throwing away your potential, right? You could have gone pre-law at Wisconsin with that GPA." "Dad, this is a full scholarship to one of the top schools in the country," I said, trying to make him understand. "For drawing pictures," he replied. "While your brothers are building real futures. James is already being scouted for management at his firm, and Michael's halfway through his MBA. Mum appeared with a plate of appetizers. "George, everyone's asking where the graduate of honor is. Come on, both of you." As we rejoined the party, Mum squeezed my arm and whispered, "He'll come around. He just wants you to be secure." But the look in Dad's eyes told me otherwise. To him, I'd made my choice, and it was the wrong one. I was choosing a path he couldn't control or understand, and in his world, that was unforgivable. What I didn't realize then was that this was just the beginning of a much bigger divide. That summer before college was tense. While my friends' parents helped them shop for dorm supplies and discussed campus life, my father barely acknowledged my upcoming departure. My mother, caught as always between her husband's disapproval and her daughter's dreams, helped me pack in secret snatches of time when Dad was at work. The morning I left for New York, Dad went to the office early. There was no goodbye, no hug, no fatherly advice for his youngest child moving hundreds of miles away, just an empty space where support should have been. Mum drove me to the airport alone, crying as she hugged me at security. "He loves you, Rosanna," she insisted. "He just doesn't know how to show it when he's worried." I nodded, not wanting to argue on our last moment together, but I was beginning to understand that what my father called love came with conditions I would never be able to meet. New York City was a shock to my Midwestern system. The noise, the pace, the sheer volume of humanity packed into the crowded streets of Brooklyn, where I found an apartment with 3 other art students. Our place was a 5th-floor walk-up with unreliable heat and a shared bathroom, but it was freedom. Those first months were a brutal education in adult independence. My scholarship covered tuition, but little else. I worked at a coffee shop before classes and waited tables on weekends, coming home with feet so sore I soaked them in ice water before collapsing into bed. Many nights I survived on leftover pastries from the cafe and packets of ramen. I called home weekly those first few months. Mum would answer, eager for details about my classes and new friends. Dad rarely came to the phone, and when he did, our conversations were brief and formal. "Are your grades good, Ats?" he would ask. "Yes, I'm getting all A's," I'd reply. "And you're being safe? New York is dangerous." "Yes, Dad." Then silence followed by, "Here's your mother." During midterms of my first semester, my laptop died. It was essential for my digital design class, and replacing it meant choosing between paying rent or sleeping on someone's couch. Swallowing my pride, I called home. "Dad, I hate to ask, but I need help." I explained the situation. There was a long pause. "You chose this path, Rosanna. Part of being an adult is handling your own problems." "It's just a loan until my next paycheck. I can send you a repayment plan. If we start bailing you out now, you'll never learn. Maybe this is the reality check you need about that career choice." I hung up and cried until my roommate Jennifer found me. She helped me apply for an emergency student loan that came with punishing interest. 3 days later, a small package arrived from Wisconsin. Inside was $500 in cash and a note in my mother's handwriting. "Don't tell Dad. Love you." It was the first of many secret subsidies from my mother birthday cards, with extra cash care packages, with gift cards hidden among homemade cookies, occasional loans that she never asked to be repaid. Each came with the same instruction: "Don't tell Dad." Despite the financial struggles, I was thriving creatively. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language, who saw art not as a frivolous hobby, but as a legitimate calling. My professors pushed me beyond what I thought I could accomplish, and my work began to evolve from technically proficient to genuinely innovative. During sophomore year, I met Jordan in a color theory class. Tall, with intelligent eyes and a quiet confidence, Jordan was studying industrial design and approached everything with thoughtful precision. Our first conversation lasted 6 hours, stretching from coffee after class to dinner at a cheap Thai restaurant to a midnight walk through Washington Square Park. Jordan became my first serious relationship, the first person who seemed to understand me completely without explanation. We moved in together at the start of junior year, finding a slightly larger apartment in Bushwick with another couple. Our life together was built on creative collaboration and mutual support. When I doubted myself, Jordan reminded me of my strengths. When money was tight, we figured it out together. Back in Wisconsin, my brothers were following the paths my father had envisioned. James was climbing the corporate ladder at a financial services firm. Michael had finished his MBA and was working for a consulting company, recently engaged to his college girlfriend, from a good family with connections my father approved of. Their milestones were celebrated with enthusiasm. Mum would call describing Michael's engagement party at the country club or the new car Dad helped James finance. My achievements making the dean's list, having my work selected for the student showcase, landing a coveted summer internship at a design firm were acknowledged with polite interest, but never celebrated. During my senior year, I had a breakthrough. My thesis project, a series examining the facades of American family life, was noticed by a small but prestigious gallery in Chelsea. They invited me to participate in a group show featuring emerging artists. The opening night was magical. The gallery was packed and 3 of my pieces sold. Critics from several arts publications attended, and one mentioned my work specifically in his review. Jordan brought champagne to celebrate afterward, and we stayed up all night talking about possibilities I'd never dared imagine before. I called my parents the next morning, too excited to contain myself. Mom, Dad, my work was in a real gallery show, and I sold 3 pieces. Mom made appropriate sounds of excitement. Dada Santan, Dad asked, "How much did you make?" $2,000. I said, still amazed that strangers had paid real money for my art. "That's about minimum wage for the hours you probably spent," he calculated aloud. "Well, I suppose it's a start." The familiar deflation followed, but this time it was buffered by Jordan's unwavering belief and the tangible evidence that others valued what I created. For the first time, my father's approval seemed less crucial than it once had. I was building a life that made sense to me, even if it remained incomprehensible to him. Graduation approached with both excitement and dread. I had survived 4 years of grueling work, both academic and financial. I had built relationships with professors who were now mentors and friends who had become family. I had Jordan, who had recently been hired by a furniture design company and wanted us to stay in New York. I sent my parents and brothers formal invitations to my graduation ceremony. James sent his regrets an important business trip. Michael would be there, but would have to leave immediately after for a friend's bachelor party. Mum called to confirm she and Dad would attend. They flew in the morning of the ceremony. There was no time to show them my apartment or introduce them properly to Jordan. We met at a diner near campus for a rushed breakfast, where Dad talked about the flight delays and Mum asked superficial questions without listening to the answers. At the ceremony, they sat stiffly in their seats as I crossed the stage to receive my diploma with highest honours. At the small reception afterward, Dad checked his watch repeatedly while Mum took photos and made small talk with my favourite professor. "We need to head back to the airport," Dad announced after barely 45 minutes. "Traffic will be a nightmare." There was no celebration dinner, no champagne toast, no recognition of the magnitude of what I'd accomplished against significant odds. Just a quick hug from Mum and an awkward handshake from Dad before they disappeared into a taxi. Jordan found me standing alone, watching their cab merge into traffic. "Your family is something else," Jordan said, taking my hand. "They're not all my family," I replied, looking at the friends gathering around us, planning our real celebration. "Some of my family is right here." After graduation, reality set in quickly. The New York art scene was brutally competitive, and a degree from Pratt opened doors but didn't guarantee success. I sent out dozens of applications and took freelance design work where I could find it. Some months were feast, others famine. Jordan and I moved into our own tiny apartment in Greenpoint. It was the first place that was truly ours. No roommates, no parents, no compromise with anyone else's vision. We painted one wall, deep teal hung string lights across the ceiling, and filled every shelf with books and art supplies. It wasn't much, but it was home. 6 months after graduation, I landed a junior designer position at Vortex Design Group, a boutique firm known for its innovative approach to branding and packaging. The salary wasn't impressive, but it was steady income doing work I enjoyed with people who valued creativity. Meanwhile, back in Wisconsin, my brothers' lives were progressing along my father's approved timeline. Michael married Amanda in a lavish ceremony at the country club. I flew home for the wedding, bringing Jordan as my +1. Dad spared no expense, open bar, 5-course dinner, live band flowers flown in from Ecuador. During the rehearsal dinner, Dad stood to make a toast, his voice thick with emotion. "Michael, you've always made the smart choices. You worked hard, planned carefully, and found a wonderful partner who shares your values. Your mother and I couldn't be prouder of the man you've become." I clapped along with everyone else, ignoring the implicit comparison. Jordan squeezed my hand under the table. At the reception, Mum pulled me aside while Dad was busy with the photographer. "Your latest pieces on your website look wonderful," she whispered. "The colours are so vibrant." "You've seen my website?" I was surprised. Mum barely used email. She nodded. "I have the neighbour's son show me. I wouldn't know how to find it otherwise, and your father doesn't." She trailed off as Dad approached. "Diana, they need us for family photos," he said, not acknowledging me. That night in our hotel room, Jordan held me as I cried. "Why isn't what I do ever enough?" I asked. "I'm happy. I'm supporting myself. I'm doing what I love." "Because it's not about you," Jordan said gently. "It's about him and his need for control. You're the only one who didn't give it to him." The pattern continued over the next few years. James married a banker's daughter in an equally extravagant wedding. Both brothers bought homes in upscale suburbs with Dad's help with the down payment. Michael and Amanda had their first child, prompting Dad to start a college fund before the baby left the hospital. My career was advancing too, albeit along a different path. I was promoted to senior designer at Vortex. My freelance illustrations were published in several magazines. A small neighborhood gallery featured a series of my mixed media pieces exploring urban isolation, and the show sold out. Jordan proposed on my 31st birthday with a simple but beautiful ring we'd designed together, another step in our partnership that felt natural and right. When I called to share the news, Mum was genuinely happy for us. Dad's response was predictably lukewarm. Well, it's about time. You're not getting any younger. No congratulations, no welcome to the family for Jordan. Just another tick on his timeline of appropriate life events happening several years too late by his calculation. Family gatherings grew increasingly tense. At Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house with both brothers and their families present, Dad asked Michael about his recent promotion and James about his new boat. When he finally turned to me, it wasn't to ask about my work or life in New York. So, Rosanna, when are you going to get a real job with benefits? Jordan's furniture stuff isn't exactly stable either, is it? Dad, I have a real job. I'm a senior designer at a respected firm, and Jordan just won an industry award for innovation. But no retirement plan, right? No security. At your age, your brothers had substantial savings already. Jordan, normally diplomatic, spoke up. Actually, sir, we're doing quite well. Rosanna's latest gallery show was featured in the Times, and my new chair design goes into production next month. Dad looked at Jordan with thinly veiled disdain. Well, good luck with that. I hope you're saving something for when the artsy bubble bursts. Mum quickly changed the subject, asking about dessert preferences, but the damage was done. The rest of the meal passed in uncomfortable conversation about safe topics like the weather and recent films. That night, as we prepared for bed in my childhood room, Dad still insisted unmarried couples sleep separately, so Jordan was on the sofa. Mum knocked softly and slipped inside. I'm proud of you both, she whispered. I saw the article about your show. I saved it. Then why don't you ever say anything when he talks to me like that? I asked. Mum looked down. You know how he is. It would just make things worse. For who, Mum? For him or for you? She didn't answer, just kissed my forehead like she did when I was small and left the room. Phone calls with my family grew shorter and less frequent. Mum would call weekly, but our conversations remained superficial. She never wanted to bother me with family news, which meant I often learned about important events through social media or when it was too late to participate. Dad called monthly at best, usually to relay some success story about my brothers, or to inquire about our financial planning in a way that suggested he expected us to be failing. I tried setting boundaries, telling them I wouldn't discuss my career choices or listen to comparisons with my brothers. This resulted in even shorter conversations, as these topics constituted most of what my father wanted to talk about. Each call left me emotionally drained, feeling like I'd failed some test I never agreed to take. Jordan watched me struggle with these relationships, offering support, but never pushing me to cut ties completely. They're your family, Jordan would say, but you get to decide what that means. What I didn't realize was that the decision would ultimately be made for me. Michael's second child was baptized in the same church where all of us had been christened as babies. The event was scheduled for a weekend when I had a major deadline at work, but I rearranged everything to be there. This was my niece after all, and family obligations were important even in my complicated family. Jordan and I flew in for the weekend, booking a hotel rather than staying with either my parents or my brother. It gave us space to decompress and provided a neutral territory. The baptism itself was beautiful. Baby Sophia looked angelic in the family christening gown that had been worn by generations of babies on my mother's side. I stood in the back of the church with Jordan, watching my parents beam with pride as they stood next to Michael and Amanda at the font designated as godparents. I hadn't been asked to be godmother. I learned later that Dad had convinced Michael that my unstable lifestyle and distance from the church made me an inappropriate choice. My older brother James was godfather, completing the family circle that subtly excluded me. The reception was held at my parents' country club, an elegant affair with monogrammed napkins and a string quartet. As guests mingled during the cocktail hour, I tried to spend time with Michael, meeting his friends and colleagues, making appropriate, admiring comments about the baby. When it came time for the formal family photographs, the photographer called for immediate family only around the baptismal cake. I moved forward with Jordan, only to feel my father's hand on my arm. "Let's keep it simple," he said quietly. "Just the parents, grandparents and godparents first." I stepped back, watching as my parents, Michael, Amanda, James, and his wife Susan, gathered around the baby. The photographer took several shots, then asked if there were any other configurations they wanted. "I think we've got what we need," my father said before Michael could respond. Jordan led me towards the bar, sensing my hurt. "Let's get some champagne," he said, trying to distract me. As we waited for our drinks, I overheard my father talking to one of his golf buddies several feet away. They didn't see me standing there. "Michael's really done everything right," Dad was saying. "Solid career, lovely wife from a good family, raising the kids properly. Not like my youngest living that bohemian lifestyle in New York. No stability, no real future." His friend made some non-committal response, but Dad continued. "And that partner not even married yet after all these years, probably because they both know it's not going to last. These artistic types aren't built for commitment, always chasing the next inspiration." I felt like I'd been slapped. Jordan, who had also heard, took my hand. "Let's get some air," he suggested, leading me toward the terrace. But something in me had reached its breaking point. Years of subtle dismissals, of being the family disappointment, of having my life and choices devalued, it crystallized in that moment into a clarity I couldn't ignore. I turned back. "No," I said. "I'm done pretending this is okay." I walked directly to where my father stood, still chatting with his friend. "Dad, can I speak with you privately?" My voice was steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through me. His friend excused himself, sensing tension. "What's wrong now, Rosanna?" Dad asked, annoyance evident in his tone. "I heard what you said about me and about Jordan, and I'm done. I'm done being the family failure. I'm done having my life and my choices and my relationship disrespected." Dad's face hardened. "This isn't the time or place." "It never is it? There's never a good time to acknowledge that you've spent my entire adult life treating me like I'm a disappointment because I dared to live differently than you planned." My voice had risen slightly, and nearby guests were beginning to notice. Mum appeared at Dad's side, her face anxious. "Rosanna, please," she whispered. "It's Michael's special day." "I know, Mum, and I wouldn't say anything if this was a one-time thing, but it's not. It's every day, every conversation, every family gathering. I'm tired of being the cautionary tale, the example of what not to do." Dad's face had turned red. "You're making a scene. This is exactly the kind of selfish behavior I'm talking about. No thought for anyone but yourself." Selfish, I rearranged my entire work schedule to be here. I fly home for every family event, even though I'm barely acknowledged. I call even though the conversations leave me feeling worthless. "Tell me, Dad, what exactly should I be doing differently?" "You should be living a respectable life, a stable career, a proper marriage, a home in a safe neighborhood. Not this fantasy artist existence that will leave you destitute when reality finally hits." The worst part wasn't his words, which I'd heard variations of before. It was the genuine contempt in his eyes as he looked at me like I was a stranger who had infiltrated his perfect family. "I am living a respectable life," I said quietly. "I'm successful by any reasonable measure. I'm happy. I'm in a loving, committed relationship. The only problem is that it doesn't look like what you wanted for me." "Success." He laughed harshly. "You call scraping by in that cramped apartment success? Your brother's vacation home is bigger than your entire building." Jordan had joined us, standing silently at my side. Michael appeared too, looking distressed. "Dad, maybe we should—" Michael began, but Dad cut him off. "No, Michael, your sister wants to do this here now. Fine. Rosanna, you made your choices. You rejected everything we tried to give you, stability, connections, a clear path to success. Instead, you chose this unstable life with—" He gestured dismissively toward Jordan. "Someone who encourages your impractical dreams." "Jordan supports me," I said, "which is more than I can say for you." "That's enough." Dad's voice was cold, final. "If you want to continue this disrespect, you can leave." "George," Mum said, finally speaking up, "it's a baptism. And she's ruining it with her selfishness, just like she ruins everything with her need to be different." The silence that followed was deafening. Guests nearby had gone quiet, pretending not to listen, but clearly absorbing every word. "I didn't want to be different," I said softly. "I just wanted to be me, and I wanted you to love me anyway." Dad looked at me for a long moment, then said the words that would echo in my mind for months to come. "If you can't respect this family's values, then you're no longer part of this family. It's your choice." With that, he turned and walked away. Mum stood, frozen tears in her eyes, then hurried after him without a word to me. Michael gave me an apologetic glance before following our parents, his duty clear. Jordan and I left the reception immediately. We changed our flights and were back in New York that night, neither of us speaking much on the journey home. The shock was too fresh, the pain too raw for words. The next morning, I called my mother, hoping to at least salvage something from the wreckage of the previous day. "Mum, I'm sorry things got out of hand yesterday, but I need you to understand. Rosanna." She interrupted, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you, but your father is very upset. The best thing would be for you to apologize to him." Apologize for what? For defending myself. For causing a scene at the baptism. For embarrassing the family. He said I'm not part of the family anymore. Do you agree with him? There was a long pause. Of course not. But you know how he is when he's angry. Just give him time to cool down, then apologize, and things can go back to normal. Normal wasn't working for me, Mom. I can't keep pretending I'm okay with being treated like a disappointment, she sighed. Then I don't know what to tell you. That afternoon, my father called. I answered, hoping for reconciliation, despite everything. "Rosanna," he said, his voice icy, "I want to be clear about what happened yesterday. You chose to disrespect this family publicly. You chose to put your selfish feelings above Michael's special day. These are choices that have consequences. Dad, I'm not finished. Until you're ready to apologize and start behaving like a proper member of this family, you are no longer welcome at family events. I've spoken with your brothers and they understand my position. You're cutting me off completely because I stood up for myself. No, because you refused to grow up and accept responsibility for your choices. When you're ready to do that, we can talk. Until then, do not contact us." The line went dead. I stood in my living room, phone in hand, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. My father had just disowned me. And from the sounds of it, my brothers were following his lead. That was the beginning of the silence. No calls from Dad, no texts from my brothers. Even Mum's communication dwindled to occasional brief messages that felt like they were sent in secret. Just like that, I was erased from the Fisher family narrative. The weeks following my father's declaration were a blur of grief and disbelief. I'd always known our relationship was strained, but I never imagined he would actually cut me out of his life completely. The finality of it left me reeling. I cycled through emotions, devastating sadness, burning anger, gnawing guilt that maybe I should have just kept quiet, followed by fierce conviction that standing up for myself was long overdue. Some days I could barely get out of bed. Other days I threw myself into work with manic intensity as if I could outrun the pain. Jordan was my rock through it all, giving me space when I needed it and pulling me back when I drifted too far into darkness. "Your father made this choice," Jordan reminded me. "Not you, you just finally stopped accepting mistreatment." A month after the baptism blowout, I started therapy. Dr. Abrams was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and a direct manner that cut through my defenses. "What your father did is called emotional blackmail," she explained during our third session. "He's punishing you for not complying with his vision. It's a control tactic. But maybe if I'd been less confrontational, chosen a better time." "Rosanna," she interrupted gently, "would there ever have been a right time in your father's eyes for you to set boundaries?" The question stopped me cold. We both knew the answer. In our sessions, patterns emerged from my childhood stories, my father's conditional love, my mother's enabling behavior, my brother's compliance as a survival strategy. I began to understand that the family dynamics weren't my fault and never had been. "You've been fighting for approval that was never going to come on your terms," Dr. Abrams said. "The question is, what would healing look like without that approval?" It was a revolutionary concept. What if I stopped measuring my worth against my father's impossible standards? What if I fully embraced the life I'd built instead of apologizing for it? While processing these insights, I poured my emotions into my art. I created a series of mixed media pieces exploring family mythology and the stories we tell ourselves about belonging. The work was raw, personal, vulnerable in a way my previous art hadn't been. Cynthia, the owner of a respected gallery in Soho, saw 3 pieces I'd posted online and contacted me immediately. "This work is extraordinary," she said when we met. "There's something universal in your personal pain. Would you consider developing this into a complete exhibition?" The idea terrified and excited me. Creating more pieces meant diving deeper into my family trauma, but it also offered a chance to transform that pain into something meaningful. I spent the next 4 months creating 16 pieces for the exhibition titled Conditional. Each explored aspects of family relationships, expectations, disappointment, conditional love, the search for authenticity. Jordan supported me through late nights and creative frustration, bringing me coffee and listening as I worked through ideas aloud. Meanwhile, my career at Vortex was flourishing. My raw emotional state somehow translated into more authentic design work, and I was promoted to creative director, overseeing a team of junior designers and larger client projects. The increased salary allowed Jordan and me to start looking for a larger apartment, possibly even with enough space for a proper home studio. We found a sunlit 2-bedroom in Park Slope, with large windows and a spare room perfect for creating art. It was the first major purchase we made together, a commitment to our future that felt especially meaningful, given the family rejection I was processing. The night we signed the lease, Jordan proposed properly down on one knee in our empty new living room with the spring sunset painting the walls gold through the bare windows. "I know we've talked about this before," Jordan said, "but I want to make it official. I want to build a family with you, Rosanna, one based on acceptance and support and celebrating each other's dreams." Through happy tears, I said yes. We decided on a small ceremony in Prospect Park the following spring, surrounded by friends who had become our chosen family. Throughout these months of personal growth and professional success, the silence from my biological family continued. I sent my mother texts about the apartment and our engagement. Her responses were brief, non-committal. I tried calling my brothers a few times, leaving voicemails that were never returned. Social media became a window into the family life. I was excluded from photos of holiday gatherings at my parents' house, my niece's first birthday party, a fishing trip my brothers took with Dad. I wasn't tagged or mentioned. It was as if I had never existed. Mother's Day arrived and I sent Mum flowers with a card, expressing my love despite everything. She texted a thank you with no mention of the ongoing estrangement. Father's Day passed with no contact. The most painful moment came when I discovered through Facebook that James and Susan were expecting their first child. My brother hadn't bothered to tell me I would be an aunt again. I closed my laptop and cried for hours, mourning not just my exclusion, but the relationships my nieces and nephews would never have with their black sheep aunt. Yet alongside this grief, something unexpected was happening. My exhibition was generating buzz in the New York art scene. Critics praised the emotional depth and technical skill of the pieces. Collectors were expressing interest before the opening. Cynthia arranged for a feature in a prominent arts magazine, including an interview where I spoke candidly about the personal experiences that informed the work. The week before the exhibition opened, Jordan came home with a copy of the magazine. My photo was on the cover, alongside the headline, "Rosanna Fisher Transforming Family Pain into Artistic Triumph." "You did it," Jordan said, eyes shining with pride. "You took the worst thing and made something beautiful from it." That night, I sent the digital version of the article to my mother's email. I didn't expect a response, but I wanted her to see that I was not just surviving, but thriving, that the daughter they had rejected was being recognized for the very qualities they had dismissed. Opening night of Conditional was a milestone I never could have imagined. The gallery was packed with a line stretching down the block. Art critics from major publications circulated among the crowd. Every piece sold some to significant collectors. As I gave a brief speech thanking everyone for coming, I scanned the crowd out of habit, half expecting to see my mother standing quietly in the back. She wasn't there, of course. None of my blood family was. But my chosen family surrounded me, Jordan beaming with pride. My friends from Pratt, my colleagues from Vortex, my therapist who had helped me navigate the darkness, even my first art teacher from high school who had flown in as a surprise. Later that night, as Jordan and I celebrated with friends at our favorite restaurant, I realized something profound. I was happy. Not despite my family's absence, but wholly and completely in the life I had created. For the first time, I felt truly free of the need for my father's approval. The next morning, the New York Times art section featured a review of the exhibition, calling it a searing exploration of family dynamics that speaks to anyone who has ever felt like an outsider in their own home. I was reading the review online when my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in 9 months. My father was calling. The phone screen displayed my father's name, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. After 9 months of complete silence here, he was reaching out on the very morning my career had reached a new height. I showed the screen to Jordan, who squeezed my hand in support. "Do you want to answer it?" Jordan asked quietly. I nodded, my heart racing. Perhaps he'd seen the Times review. Perhaps this was the olive branch I'd stopped hoping for months ago. "Hello!" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Rosanna." My father's voice was familiar, yet distant. "How are you?" The casual greeting after months of estrangement was jarring. "I'm fine. This is unexpected." "Yes, well," he cleared his throat. "I saw your name in the paper this morning. A flutter of hope rose in my chest. Had he seen the review and felt proud? Was this his way of acknowledging my success? The exhibition is doing really well, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. So I gather, he replied, and there was something odd in his tone that I couldn't place. Sounds like you're making quite a bit of money from it. The hope deflated. Of course he was calling about money, not about reconciliation or pride in my accomplishments. The show has been successful, yes, I said carefully. Good. Another throat clearing. Look, Rosanna, I'm calling because we have a situation here. A situation, a financial matter. I made some investments that haven't panned out the way they should have. Nothing permanent, just a temporary cash flow issue. Your mother is worried sick about it. I remained silent, trying to process what I was hearing. With your newfound success, he continued, I thought perhaps you might help the family out. After all, we supported you for 18 years. Paid for your food, your clothes, your education before college. You owe us really when you think about it. The words landed like a physical blow. 9 months of silence, and this was why he reached out. Not to apologize or rebuild our relationship, but to demand money. I owe you. I repeated, my voice hollow. Well, yes. That's how family works, Rosanna. We take care of each other. Your brothers are having their own financial challenges with the kids and mortgages. You're the one with the windfall right now. I looked at Jordan, who was watching me with concern, only hearing my side of the conversation. I put the phone on speaker so Jordan could hear. How much are you talking about, Dad? I asked. 50,000 would tide us over until my investments rebound. I can send you the account details. $50,000. A staggering sum that represented most of what I'd earned from the exhibition after the gallery's commission and taxes. Money that Jordan and I had earmarked for renovating our new apartment and possibly starting a family of our own soon. That's a lot of money, I said quietly. Well, you're the big success story now, aren't you? There was an edge to his voice. The Times says your little paintings are selling for tens of thousands each. Surely you can spare some for the people who raised you. The people who raised me, I repeated slowly. The same people who told me I wasn't part of the family anymore. The same people who haven't spoken to me in 9 months. There was a pause. That was an emotional moment. We all say things we don't mean when we're upset. Do we? Because you seemed pretty clear about cutting me off until I apologized for standing up for myself. Rosanna, this isn't productive. I'm calling about a serious financial matter. And I'm talking about a serious family matter. You disowned me, Dad. You told my brothers not to contact me. Mum barely responds to my texts. And now you're calling because you need money. His tone hardened. I thought you'd have matured by now, realized the importance of family obligations. Family obligations? My voice rose. What about your obligation as a father to love your child unconditionally? What about your obligation to support my dreams, even if they weren't the ones you chose for me? Don't be dramatic. We gave you everything. Accept acceptance. Accept respect for my choices, accept the basic dignity of treating me like a valued member of this family rather than a disappointment you tolerated. So that's a no then. His voice turned cold. You'd rather hold on to grudges than help your family in need. Something broke inside me, the last thread of hope, that my father might someday see me, truly see me. This isn't about grudges, Dad. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging that you can't discard someone from your life and then expect them to bail you out when it's convenient. Your mother will be devastated. She's been so stressed about our finances. A low blow using Mom to manipulate me. In the past, it might have worked. Tell Mom she can call me anytime. I love her and I'll always be here for her. But I won't be treated like an ATM by someone who couldn't even bother to call when I got engaged. Engaged. For the first time, he sounded caught off guard. To that Jordan person. Yes, to Jordan, my partner of 7 years, the person who has supported me unconditionally through everything, including being cut off by my own father. There was a long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was tight with anger. I see you've made your choice. Again. Choosing selfishness over family duty. No, Dad, I'm choosing self-respect. I'm choosing not to enable the same patterns that hurt me for years. That's not selfishness, that's health. Don't bother calling your mother about this conversation, he snapped. She doesn't need to be upset by your attitude. My attitude, Dad, you disowned me, ignored me for 9 months and called only to demand money, and I'm the one with the attitude problem. I don't have time for this. Either you're willing to help the family or you're not. I took a deep breath, Jordan's steady presence beside me giving me strength. "Goodbye, Dad," I said quietly and ended the call. My hand trembled as I set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Jordan wrapped me in a tight embrace as the tears came, not sad tears this time, but tears of release, of finally fully letting go of the fantasy that my father would ever be the parent I needed him to be. "I'm proud of you," Jordan whispered. "So proud." I nodded against Jordan's shoulder, unable to speak through the complex emotions swirling through me. Grief and relief, loss and liberation, all tangled together in a moment that felt like both an ending and a beginning. The phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Your selfishness is disappointing but not surprising. Don't bother contacting us again until you're ready to take family responsibility seriously." I showed it to Jordan, who shook their head in disbelief. "He still doesn't get it," Jordan said. "No," I agreed. "And maybe he never will." I deleted the text without responding, then turned off my phone. Today was supposed to be a celebration of my exhibition's success, not another exercise in family dysfunction. As Jordan made coffee, I stared out the window at the Brooklyn street below, watching people go about their Saturday morning routines. Parents with strollers, couples walking dogs, friends meeting for brunch, all these different versions of connection and family playing out in countless ways. My father had tried to define family as obligation, as conformity, as control. But I was learning a different definition: family as acceptance, as support, as celebrating each other's authentic selves. I had found that family in Jordan, in my friends, in my creative community. Maybe someday parts of my biological family would join that circle. Maybe not. For the first time, I felt at peace with either outcome. That evening, as Jordan and I hosted friends to celebrate the exhibition's success, my phone rang again. I almost didn't check it, assuming it was my father making another attempt. But it was a number I didn't recognize. I stepped into our bedroom to answer. "Hello." "Rosanna, it's Michael. My brother." My heart clenched. "Michael, hi. I saw your show in the Times." His voice was hesitant, nothing like his usual confidence. "The artwork looked really powerful." "Thank you," I said, surprised by the genuine compliment. "Dad called you today, didn't he?" It wasn't really a question. "Yes, about money." Michael sighed. "I figured. Listen, I'm not supposed to be calling you. Dad would be furious if he knew." "Why are you then?" There was a long pause. "Because I saw your work. Because Dad's been strange about money lately, making risky investments, getting defensive when anyone questions him. Because I miss my sister." His voice cracked slightly on the last words. Something warm unfurled in my chest, hope, but a different kind than before. Not hope that my father would change, but hope that not all family bonds were severed. "I miss you too," I said softly. "I can't promise anything," Michael said. "I've got Amanda and the kids to think about. But maybe we could have coffee next time you're in town. Just us." It was a small offering, tentative and fragile, but it was something. "I'd like that," I said. After we hung up, I rejoined the party, sliding my hand into Jordan's with a slight smile. I wasn't ready to share Michael's call, yet it felt too new, too delicate. But for the first time in months, I felt a tiny crack in the wall that had separated me from my first family. The next morning, another surprise. An email from my mother sent from an address I didn't recognize. "Rosanna, I created this email so I could write to you privately. I saw your exhibition online. It brought me to tears, both the beauty of your work and knowing the pain behind it. I am so proud of who you've become, even if I've been too weak to say so. I love you always. Mom." Attached was a photo I'd never seen my mother standing in an art supply store, seemingly asking someone to take her picture, next to a display featuring the magazine with me on the cover. Her smile was genuine, her eyes bright with tears. I showed Jordan, who hugged me tight. "See? The truth has power," Jordan said. "Your art spoke what you couldn't say for years." That afternoon, we visited our new apartment, now in the early stages of renovation. Standing in what would be my studio space, sunlight streaming through the windows, I felt a profound sense of rightness. This was my path. This was my life. And it was beautiful, even with its scars and missing pieces. "What are you thinking?" Jordan asked, coming to stand beside me. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," I answered. "And that's enough." I didn't know if my father would ever be part of my life again. I didn't know if the fragile reconnections with Michael and my mother would strengthen or wither. But for the first time, those uncertainties didn't define me. I had found my voice in my art, in my relationships, and standing up for my worth. And no one could take that away. Have you ever had to walk away from someone toxic, even when society says you should keep trying, because they're family? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Remember that creating boundaries isn't selfish. It's sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their family struggles. Thank you for being part of my chosen family here, and I hope you find the courage to create the life you deserve, surrounded by people who truly see and celebrate you.